Assalamu alaikum. How is everybody doing? I'm so grateful to see so many of you come at such short notice. So just a quick background, guys. Welcome to Rumi's Cave. Rumi's Cave is run here by the incredible team at Alpha Aid. Sakina here heading it up. It's a brilliant space here. It's a community space. It's here for you guys. We have 3 opening acts for you. Just to tickle your taste buds, inshallah. We have 2 poets and a singer. And then we're going to have Mark come on, and he's going to share some of his work. To start us off tonight, we have a poet, a rapper. His name is Ibrahim Sincere. He's 19 years old. He's up and coming. Inshallah, I want to give him a lot of support, and just put your hands together for Ibrahim Sincere.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I want to do two poems. The first is called Snowflakes, and the second is called Sons of Liberty. I haven't done Snowflakes in a while, so I might be a little rusty. You guys are going to have to bear with me. I was formed in the frozen white sky, designed perfect, born free, so cold inside, somewhere in a cold cloud, sometime on a cold night. I was left a fallen waver beneath the wind, sway amongst the angels descending to this earth. Some were like me, but they fell as rainfall, melted before the downfall, fell fast, but I kept my cool, even though I was destined to burn. I landed and walked the streets, felt the heat, lost my perfection in an instant. The earth was fire to my cold inner self. Let me explain what I felt, use time as my reference, use its line as my sentence. Soul of humanity, I'm a snowflake cold of insanity. I walked the streets, losing my design, disintegrated by animalistic minds so rapidly, but somehow, some way, I survived. I was there. I watched Temujin rise, looked Machiavelli in his eyes, I heard the Chechnyans cry. I was there with Mandela like a semi on his side, and knowing me was the reason why Kennedy died. I saw Little Red evolve into Malcolm X in his prime. I saw Templars conquer through divide and manipulate the mathematics of falsehood and right. Distort the equation, making changes to one side equals a lie. Evil is right. Infiltrate the ranks of society, still the strength for you to fight like a thief in the night. Lost of your treasure and they controlled what the people could find. Now the globe's zooming up. I'm not easy to find. I stood behind Solomon, saw jinns fall, watched spirits fly. I saw gothic magicians connect with dark dimensions, took all the demons from the skies, forming books of dark legacies, taught to control the minds. See, I lost my design. How could I explain but use time as my reference, use its line as my sentence? I burnt when I saw a man die for my redemption in Babylonian lands. He was a spark of freedom falling into petroleum hands, a flame in the hearts of the believers. I walked through this land disfigured by the past. I remember when Fatima lost a baby she never held in her arms. Transferred my presence onto a ship behind an ignorant master. Saw the coloured man whipped, forced asleep in a ditch. These are conditions he was living in after being royalty in his own land. See, some of them were princes, kings. I can't believe the way they treated a young girl, an ex-mother, a grown man. This is not a matter of colour, these are just symptoms and signs. The cause was I was losing my design. See, I am pure, perfect and white, but do not see humans in the same way. The same concept does not apply. The temperature is no longer right. I was once optimistic, call my journey a flight, but now I'm falling faster, losing my design. Balance is unstable. I felt this way ever since Cain felt he was able to take his brother's life. Up until I saw the plains of Hiroshima rise. Boom. Saw a mushroom form in the same skies I was falling from. Children looked onto images that put fear in them. Somewhere, Mr. Madness, I was there all along. And now I'm seeing images of materialism. People indifferent to the suffering they witness, lost in their own worlds and plights. And if only I could speak, I would tell Ibrahim in the hope he can see that. I know he feels pain because he tried, but pain is what I've seen. And pain is where I've been. And still I am a crystal, still I have a dream. Still I can be freed from the hell's pits. The heat of this earth, man, trust me, I felt it. Losing my design and I can't even help it. I'm the snowflake of humanity and I'm this close to melting. I'm going to do one more piece and then go. So what I usually do is I'll tell you guys all about my social networks. Twitter, Twitter, which is at Ibrahim Sincere. You can search my stuff on YouTube, Ibrahim Sincere, Facebook and everything else. Sons of Liberty. Mothered by our struggle, we are the sons of liberty, but some of these people simply take the liberties. See, I can articulate the issue intellectually, or I can drop it in a way where you don't have to think too hard, absorbing vocabulary just to reflect with me, and I ain't a source of light. I just try to let it reflect off me. But this is where it gets to me, because we're so scared of seeing what we hate to hear and hearing what we hate to see, that we cover our ears and our eyes and shrivel up hastily like, stay away from me. Because after inhabiting the darkness for so long, the light burns your eyes, doesn't it? And it probably takes someone to throw you off the side before you force yourself to fly, doesn't it? So before you fail and fall, spread your wings and believe that even when you have no people, the air is beneath you, the wind is behind you, the Lord can see you, and don't swallow the poisonous things that they feed to you because they want you to feel weak. They play melodious strings and they want you to fall asleep, and whilst reality is a nightmare, they want you to dream. But who is they? Like me, you're probably thinking, why does everyone always say they and never explain who it is they're referring to? But you know what? In this case, they is whoever you want or believe it to be. But believe me, freedom does not mean that I can do what I want, because the second you attempt it is the second your destruction has begun, because the drug feels good until you feel numb, and the drunk feels good until you die young. And everyone entered the cycle because they'll try it just once. Trust me, fam. Everyone. See, mental emancipation is what we should strive to achieve and set out on a journey to figure out what it means, because regardless of the enemy outside of the ones they tell me about but I never see, the real tyrant is me. I allow the light to fade. It is not he, but it is I that turns away. It is my sins that catch fire on my deeds that burn away. Not his punishment, no. Hell is something I create. And on top of this, how many innocent souls do you think will rise today? How many poor human beings do you think will die today while we spend excessively so we can smile away and watch silently as massacres are carried out miles and miles and miles away? Nobody said be poor or told her not to buy the things you like, because every once in a while we all want to dress nice, but let's do what we can, no? Let's rise from the ruins and unearth the skeletons buried alive years ago. Let's either take flight or find peace in the floor of the ocean. Let's either board Noah's Ark or walk behind Moses. Let's either touch the seventh sky or fall in the process, because more than ever before, we are ready to die just to live life. Because when you're lost and we've been lost, pain is all you find, and you turn to your mother, but you were born from a struggle, so the soldier is inside, the savior is alive, the warrior is inside. You are a son of liberty, and you were born to fight. Thank you.
Okay, subhanallah. Give it up again for Ibrahim Sincere, yeah? Inshallah, I think we're going to see a lot of great things from you, inshallah, Ibrahim. Okay, next up is my dear friend, my sister, my beautiful Sakina. She's half a poetic pilgrimage, but she's a whole in herself. She's toured around the world, has featured on countless different tracks, and has some beautiful videos up online. Has performed with some of the greatest artists that I have ever heard or been exposed to. And she's also sort of the spine of this place here at Rumi's Cave. Rumi's Cave is like, it's this beautiful space. It's this third space where you can come, whoever you are. Rumi's favorite words. Are they here somewhere? Come, whoever you are. Not those words, right? Come, whoever you are. And that's really, I think that's really Sakina, that's her art. So without further ado, Sakina, bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of poems, inshallah. Yeah, 2 poems. Both of them were written in the winter, so I kind of think it's appropriate that I perform them now. The first one I'm going to perform was written last winter. It was written in January. It was very cold. And it's actually written here. It was the first poem I ever wrote whilst working here. And it's called For Those Who Seek God's Face in the City. Bismillah. This is not a poem, more of a dedication to the patient, ones who seek God's face in the city, those who wait to catch the sunrise, even if only into grey skies, because it reminds them of the majesty of their Lord. Those who seek the sun's decline behind graffiti pattern railway lines, praying for orange and red light to paint blast the sky, because they realize if you look close enough, God always sends us signs. Even when street lamps dull the stars in the sky, they try. Even though high-rise buildings barricade the skyline, they try. See, we are not the ones with desert nights where the full moon gives enough light to read scriptures by bedsides. We are the ones who can't make it out to Mauritania or Yemen to sit at the feet of the enlightened, who teach the mysteries of Allah with the subtleties of silence, whose very fragrance is guidance for the misguided seeker who now sleeps in sacred villages where London becomes a dirty nightmare he'd rather forget. No street fights, no police sirens, no forced rape children, no people trying to earn a living on broken pavements to pay rent. This is is for those who seek Mustafa, the chosen one, in the land of the frozen sun, where we need machines that blow heat to help us sleep. But each night here, there are those who dream of the unseen and catch a gleam of his reality, waking up in tower blocks with the unwavering conviction that there is a God. This is for those who seek Allah in the city, looking for light in a land of dark days and dark nights, tense hearts and bitter minds, to those who still seek the light in people's eyes because they know we are all a manifestation of God's signs and everyone is reaching for him, even if they don't realize. This is for those with mercy in their eyes, whose prayers have the power to pierce the sky. Irregardless of where they reside, God always hears his servants' cries. Irregardless of where they reside, God always hears his servants' cries. To those who ride the train, reading sacred scrolls from masters of the soul, causing their hearts to explode and come back together between Oxford Street and Tottenham Court Road. They cause the carriage to glow, yet nobody knows the columns of angels follow them wherever they go. There are saints in the city, didn't you know? Friends of Allah walking down a high road. To those who clutch prayer beads tight, their intimate companion in the depths of the night, and as each bead passes through fingertips, his most beautiful name stained their lips, and they send prayers upon the Prophet until they no longer exist. To those who practice the fact that this whole world is a masjid, so make sacred spaces wherever they see fit, laying down prayer mats behind buildings that scrape the sky because God has his rights and we have no right but to submit. Our bodies exist in the metropolis, but their souls are found bliss. And to those seekers who learn from online teachers and download khutbahs from iTunes and add it to their iPod playlist, exchanging YouTube videos on Facebook pages because we crave this knowledge of the sacred. These virtual sages boost our faith in the city. To those who have come to the conclusion that this whole world is an illusion that will one day fade and all that will be left is his face. To those who seek God's grace in the city, for you, I dedicate this. Ameen. Thank you. The second poem I wrote here as well. My God, this is a spot. I literally wrote this here as well. Or the skeleton of it was written here. This one's called Love and Longing. And it's like, you know when you just love someone or something, but you just, like, you know they're close to you, but you kind of want them to be closer. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Okay, so it's kind of like, it's that, but I suppose I'm not talking about someone physical. I'm talking about Allah and that kind of feeling of just like wanting that intimacy with your Lord, you know, wanting him close. And we know he is close, but sometimes we veil ourselves from our Lord, you know, so it's about that. Bismillah. May I use this moment to speak from a heart that's still beating but broken, unsure if this is prayer or poem, but I'll keep going. Wounds that can never be healed are now showing, and in my eyes there's a pain that can't be disguised, but I keep going, knowing that even if I never taste the object of my longing, the fact that I know his name in the first place means I'm already grazing in his grace. You see, my heart's inclining, feels like it's climbing out of my torso into that portal between God and mortal, so I may know what Adam's fall was for. Not sure when it became normal for me to stand at bus stops waiting for the veil to drop, aching for this illusion to rot. Not sure when it became normal for me to desperately yearn for him to turn to me, well pleased for the rest of eternity. This distance is burning me. Understand when I speak, it's not secrets I seek, not miracles or mysteries. I just want my existence to be in line with a time before history, a time before time even, before the first moment passed when we grasped with our entire being what we were seeing, witnessing him with our everything, our purpose a hymn. Praising him, praising him, praising him, I'm craving him like a fiend of the sweetest decree. No other love can satisfy me. Knowledge of God's perfection restored in me. Oh, sweet memory, don't fail me now. I know he is near, but don't know how to tell him. I love him. Can't stop thinking of him, won't stop drinking from him. And so I trod these city streets calling his name, riding gritty trains, seeking his face, even in the darkest of places, where the people seem the farthest away. Praying for his grace to descend like summer rain or even a hurricane. I don't mind. I just want to feel his nearness pouting against my window pane. What do I do with a heart that's covered in flames, Ya Allah? You know why I came and why I remain chained to those who call to your way. The seasons are starting to change. I can feel it in the air. London's winter is drawing near, where smiles between strangers are rare. But I'm still singing the songs of the lovers as if it was summer, nights by the river, and I strive to remember that God is a giver, and I ask that he give me him. Yes, I strive to remember until I forget everything apart from him. Waiting my turn, expecting nothing in return, and so I yearn, with my nights spent in orchards of the stars, meadows of the moon, craving loneliness and solitude as if it were my only food, waiting for him to whisper my name, and until that day, I pray to never, ever, ever leave this place. Inshallah, Ameen.
Wow, Sakina is brilliant, huh? Inshallah. We pray, inshallah, we can hear more of her. I think we could just listen to her all night, right? Let's give her another round of applause. Okay, so our final warm-up act, although he's more of a main course than a starter. Nazil is one of my best friends. We've traveled around the world. Well, Europe. That's kind of like the world. And I consider him a brother, and he's someone I'm working with very closely, both in a personal and in a professional sense. And so Nazil is a vocalist. He's sung all over the world. I'm thinking Middle East and Europe and North America and maybe where else. I think he's been in the charts in Bosnia or some random places like that, alhamdulillah. And there's some very, very exciting work that he's working on right now. I have samples on my phone, but I can't show you. So without further ado, Nazil Azami. Bismillah. Speak into the mic, yeah, but it doesn't. It's for the camera.
Hey, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. This does work a little bit, I think. Yeah. Anyway, how are you? Inshallah. So my name's Nazil, and I'm very happy to be here for the first time and bump into a few faces that I met from back in the day, mashallah, and of course Bilal, who's been a friend over the last few years, and we've been talking about lots of ideas, inshallah. So I like singing since I was young, and so I guess it was kind of logical for me to continue. And, you know, I think Allah kept me away from the bad music and made me like better music, hopefully. Sometimes you wonder where the line is, but you can be, you know, clear as well. Like, you know, I'm not sure about that. So I want to sing something. My thing is like sort of Indian kind of music, but you might find something Western in it as well. This is a song I sang to my mother before she passed away. She passed away quite young, and it's a mix of sort of two languages. So hope you enjoy it. I need to do a warm-up, so I don't want to make funny sounds in front of you. So, shall I just sing like this? So how do I do that? So I'm going to start a bit rusty, the song. It might sound like, you know, something wrong with the MP3 player, and then hopefully get a bit smoother. Yeah, is that okay? Is that okay, camera? Okay. This is about the nice things that happen around us naturally, like the rain falling, like so many things actually, and even in our own selves that we forget about, and we just kind of go about our daily lives. So it's kind of a song of gratitude and asking, you know, who's doing it, and obviously I'm thinking of God Almighty, the Creator. Bilal, would you sing with me? Da da da. Bolo to kari sharai গোলাপ তার গন্ধ বিলায় বলো তো কার ইশারায় মেঘের পাহাড় বৃষ্টি ঝরায় এই দুনিয়ায় এই দুনিয়ায় বলো তো কার ইশারায় হাসে চাঁদ আকাশে জোনাকি দেয় যে আলো মায়াবী আবেশে বলো তো কার ইশারায় হাসে চাঁদ আকাশে জোনাকি দেয় যে আলো মায়াবী আবেশে সে কথা ভেবে ভেবে মন আমার যায় হারিয়ে দূর জানায় দূর জানায় বলো তো কার ইশারায় গোলাপ তার গন্ধ বিলায় বলো তো কার ইশারায় মেঘের পাহাড় বৃষ্টি ঝরায় এই দুনিয়ায় এই দুনিয়ায়. And I'll ask for a little bit of participation. Ei dunya means in this world, so kind of completing the sentence. So because you don't know what I'm saying, a lot of you, so you can sing with me. Those of you who just go like and then it'll sound okay, hopefully. Just so you just say with me. If you say after me, we can have a go. Ei duniyai, ei duniyai. So I say it twice, and then you just copy me. Ei duniyai, ei duniyai. Mashallah, that was okay until some of you decided to laugh. Okay, let's try one more time. Because I feel like even though we don't all understand the same language, we know kind of what we're talking about. It's the same kind of vibe going on here, so same feeling, you know, in your heart. So let's have a go at that. Ei duniyai, ei duniyai. That's like 50% better, which is great. And then now this last one's going to be way better. Ei duniyai, ei duniyai. So, okay, I know someone who's signing artists, so let me know. Anyway, khair inshallah. And the next bit is in English. I wrote this after my mum passed away. Who made the clouds come by so we can live and be, sending rain so soft and mild, cleansing you and me. Who gave me clear eyes to see the moon when it beams. He taught me how silent love can be, a road to your dreams. Who taught the mothers of the world to love us the way they do? When all the trials unfurl, all they think of is you. You still make me cry, you still make me laugh. Don't let me ever forget about our golden past. And so the world moves on its way. Newcomers join every day. Tomorrow they will say, tomorrow they will say. What will they say, Bilal? Bolo to kar isharay, golap tar gandho bilay. Bolo to kar isharay, মেঘের পাহাড় বৃষ্টি ঝরায় এই দুনিয়ায় এই দুনিয়ায়. Sing with me. এই দুনিয়ায় এই দুনিয়ায়. Again. Hey dunya, hey dunya. One more time. Hey dunya, hey dunya. Well done. This is a song by a very special group for me when I was growing up listening to Raihan. I don't know how many of you have heard of Raihan, the sort of nasheed kind of traditional group from Malaysia. Anyone heard of Raihan here? Yeah, a few of you. So I grew up listening to that one time and really loved it. So this is me taking one of their songs, singing it a little bit my way, and wrote a few lyrics for it as well. And you can join me if you know the words, which some of you will. This is a prayer. Salatullah, salamullah, ala taha rasulillah. Salatullah, salamullah, ala yasin Habibillah. Salatullah, salamullah, ala yasin Habibillah. Below. Salatullah. إلهنا ما أعدلك ملك كل من ملك لبيك إن الحمد لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد لك والملك لا شريك لك صلاة الله سلام الله على طه رسول الله. Sing with me if you like. صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله. صلاة الله سلام الله. For you we fast, for you we pray, in you we trust and place our faith. O Allah, guide us to your grace, put our hearts in the right place. O Allah, guide us to your grace, put our hearts in the right place. Salatullah, salamullah, على طه رسول الله. صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله. صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله. إلهي سلم الأمة من الآفات والنقمة ومن هم ومن غمة. استجب دعاءنا يا الله. إلهي نجنا واكشف جميع الأذية واصرف مكايد العدا والكفر. استجب دعاءنا يا الله. صلاة الله سلام الله على طه رسول الله. Let's have a few more people. الله سلام. Ladies at the back. حبيب الله. صلاة الله سلام الله على ياسين حبيب الله. Inshallah, give yourself a round of applause. And more than that, can everyone say Ameen?
We are very, 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 very fortunate and very blessed to be joined tonight by a very special guest who's from all the way from California. He's traveled to how many countries this year? 14 countries this year. And he's just come from India. And we spent some time together in Liverpool a couple of days ago, and we're just hearing his stories. Gonzales is an award-winning HBO Def Jam poet. But beyond that, he's just an incredible guy. You know, there's certain people that you can just, you know, you just feel like you just feel like you want to be with them. You know what I mean? And I've only met Mark last 2 days, but you know, alhamdulillah, he's just someone who just pulls people towards him, both in his words and in his spirit as well. And I think inshallah you're gonna taste some of that. So what we're gonna do, Mark's gonna come up and he's gonna share some ideas and some of his work. And I know Mark is he's really about cultivating communities and about sharing his experience and sharing his ideas in order for all of us, inshallah, to sort of move to our next level of potential. And Mark has got a lot of incredible insights and ideas, and I'm sure you all are going to benefit from them. What I'm going to ask you to do is to think, all of you individually, how at least one thing that you're going to take away and do differently from the advice that we get tonight. So someone said that if you hear a piece of advice and within 2 days, within 48 hours, if you don't implement, if you don't change something in your behavior, then that piece of advice may well have just not been given to you. Mean to say, like, there is no learning without behavior change, right? So this is like a way to approach your life, really. There is no learning without behavior change. You haven't learned, you haven't grown, unless something changes in the way you do, in the way you think, the way you do things, in the way you approach your life. So come with that. Come with that mindset, inshallah. Be present and take the most from what's going to be discussed, inshallah. So without further ado, Mark Gonzales, guys.
We'll just set this here, and I'm sure it'll catch. We're under attack already? Like, and they just come on stage and already it's like, they're like, duck. I'd rather not, and believe me, the voice will carry in terms of people's sounds.
But we might have a mic stand.
It's not even around a mic stand. I guess we get it start early, even before the poem. The reality is, different people approach storytelling in different ways. Some people get up and they share a piece or a poem, and it's like, poem. What's the next poem I want to read? What's the next poem I want to read? And that's one specific way of approaching storytelling. I don't necessarily view time in that way. And I'll talk a little bit about time later. But when I get on, whether you call it a stage, whenever people start staring at me and be like, entertain me, brown man. Besides all the thoughts that go through my head in that moment. I don't view it as, here's a poem, here's some space in between, etc. It's all one story. You know, when we start to fragment the poems into this is one separate one, this is one separate one separate one, we really are fragmenting our story. In the same way, our community is fragmented because we don't share our stories, and we see them as separate instead of one part of one large narrative that crosses, you know, all of us, whatever that identity we choose. And we'll talk about this a little bit later too, around like, what does this word identity mean? Why are we so obsessed with color-coded passports and stamps? It's like we segregate the rainbow, like you're over here, you're over here. It's like, you know, it's one rainbow. It's one narrative with many different shades. And I view time in the same way. So that's where, when the mic comes up in different things, it's a very formalized space that's all of a sudden created of, here's the microphone. Dave Chappelle, I remember in his opening skit of Comedy Central, when he was talking to the audience, like it's still on YouTube, and he talked about, I'm trying to get used to this idea that I'm supposed to ignore all the people in front of me for the people who may or may not be watching on TV, because they tell me I'm supposed to watch the camera, not you. You know, and so the same thing with like microphones. I enjoy them, and I enjoy when they can capture sound, but In a space like this, I'd rather just kind of talk. Thank you so much for stories, for song. Allah in this city, that you know, Jay-Z's crime in this city. And in between the two is a homeless man standing on a crack corner, singing salvation to the tune of Bob Marley's Redemption song. We don't hear him, though, because we'd rather pay him dimes than attention spans. Our generation, we have this habit of wingspan in past history, midnight shadowing our elders into darkness. We don't want saviors. We require martyrs, as in Gandhi, Malcolm, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We choose their death over life like Barabbas over Christ. Ask Marcus Garvey, Chief Joseph. Moses will tell you we chose 40 days and 40 nights before 41 slugs. Or 9 who knew one damn thing about Amadou Diallo or Mark Duggan's life before destiny traded their soul for eminence. Wonder if their kids would trade infinite pictures of daddy's face on nationalistic kites to snatch him from death womb, abort him back into life to Sundance, and the smell of father's arms once again. Mothers will tell you it's easier to put fist in air than put food on child's plate consistently. I don't need prophecies to tell me there's a delicate balance in living, and sometimes angels do dive off clouds to tip the scale in our favor. But we don't want saviors, so they fall, break wings on concrete. On cold winter nights they tremble, tuck them under the jackets to help keep the cold out. Now they stand on crack corner disguised as homeless man, singing salvation to the tune of Bob Marley's Redemption, still offering us up prayers quicker than piano keys to the fingers of Duke Ellington, the soul of John Lee Hooker's bluesing like George Gershwin, wailing like one of these mornings we gonna rise up singing. But it's hard to sing when our communities have gone from financially viable to economically impotent, thanks to presidents who think their prince label my people, formerly known as indigenous, now called illegal immigrant in our own land, beaten like Palestinians, stolen like innocents. What kind of world is this when children are molested by an uncle named Sam? You want to complain about the Taliban? My block looks like Afghanistan. But then again, what do I know about Al-Qaeda? She grew up underneath crimson skies, watching golden crescent moons reflect off the prisms of evening star. Now she spends her evening counting the stars on the sleeves of a prison guard from behind the bars in Kandahar. She, Afghan woman, has survived 2 occupations, US and the Soviets. To her, there's no difference between the two when both mass murder Muslims like Bosnians by Milosevic. She told me a secret, asked me to share it with you. Most Americans don't know this, but Afghans, we don't hate Americans. We hate the arrogance that can't differentiate between violence and self-defense and labels everything as terrorist. She's one of the 90% of Afghanis who grew up without electricity. Friend, fortunate few who did have a TV, which she turned on in '99, just in time to see children kill children in Columbine. Thinking to herself, wow, your world is our flip side. Here it's your government spending money to kill our children just like they do in Palestine. To her, war is just a word for a government hate crime. It explodes in her face like landmines so they can dig lines, build pipelines, redirect fine lines of oil to oil refineries. It's a thin line between fascism and democracy. Speak about it like the Rosenbergs, they'll slaughter me, but it's what we ought to be doing, because right before I left, she asked me a question. If Americans don't claim to condone the killing of innocent civilians, how come no one listened to our pain until someone blew up a building? Iraqi civilians ask, is this what liberation looks like? Afghani women ask, is this what liberation looked like? Africans in prison ask, is this what liberation looks like? Everybody living asks, is this what liberation looks like? Thanks to this war, some generals are making killings off of killing on the New York Stock Exchange. We've exchanged freedom for so-called civil liberties. Yesterday, the Statue of Liberty asked me what liberty means when liberation's just a fancy word for occupation. Packaged into pretty boxes by paparazzi Nazis who use it to justify the violation of human rights on foreign shores through foreign wars. Every now and then you have to look at the world through eyes, not yours, and see what it is to live life through the eyes of an Iraqi civilian caught up and round up and thrown into prison because somebody labeled Islam a demonic religion for the way Muslim men treat Muslim women. Yet right now, Muslim women are being raped in U.S. prisons overseas by U.S. soldiers in fatigues who torture men just for kicks, take digital pics for souvenirs so you might see, wow, through their eyes, they're not really feeling liberated right now. And if I was them, I just might want to murder anyone in sight who bore any resemblance to the man who raped the woman who resembled my wife, because it's hard to sleep at night when all you see in the back of your head is some soldier yanking off your wife's hijab, slapping her arms to the side, slapping open her thighs, and right before he raped her, he pulled her tight, whispered in her ear, "This is what liberation feels like." Such contemplations lead men to do things like decapitation, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but put yourself in his shoes. If it was your wife, what would you do? And in human races, race and time, we're so far behind we think our past is our future. I feel Chinese. US reminds me of Britain. Crack cocaine be the new opium war. The CIA made junkies of my country's own citizens. Public lynchings, legal hangings, people behind bars, strange fruits, shoots of their roots. American troops policing these streets. Therefore, anyone in prison is a prisoner of war. It's the war on drugs, the war on poverty, the war on Islam, the war on misogyny. I'm declaring war audibly, storming Rikers Island like Normandy. Everyone incarcerated, get free. We're tired of jumping up, getting beat down like brand Nubian who knew like non-Nubian there's nothing new under the sun. It seems we've gone from race to culture, caste to class. And Chuck D said it best, we're still public enemy number one. Happy people, where my happy people at? Yeah. See, so how many there were in the audience on Monday?
I wanted you to comment on that day.
Okay, well, it's interesting because I thought that's why you were all here, because I kind of yelled at the audience because no one responded when I said we're happy people. And they're all like, nah. They're like, you sound real bitter, son. You're not happy. Quit lying. It's like, yeah, I'm sure you walk around with a pout all the time. But we're happy people, and please excuse, I don't want to say excuse my language, but for those of you who find sometimes language more offensive than the reality we live in, there might be a couple words that make you a little bit uncomfortable in the rest of this evening. I apologize for you. I hope we can change the world and change the language at the same time, so therefore we do not need to articulate the world with sometimes extreme language to make us understand the extreme times we're living in. And not just extreme chaos, but extreme times of dreams and love and passion and everything that's needed. But we're happy people. And it's funny because y'all laugh, and it's like, I always tell people, I was like, I don't know why. Like, people seem, it's hard to believe that we are happy people. Maybe they've been watching the news too much. And we have to, like, remind them all the time, like, no, one, don't run away, we're happy people. And then the second thing, we have to tell them we love things. And we remind them, like, we love love, and we love life, and we love language, and we love land. You know, although we are frustrated that we live in a world that stole our love, our life, our language, and our land. Stop fucking with our shit. It's a really simple concept, you know, and it's one of the things, like, traveling across this planet. And I just tell people that. They're like, what's the answer to world peace? Stop stealing other people's shit. I was like, I don't need to invest a $10 billion, you know, research grant in a think tank. It's like, don't mess with other people's things. Because the reality is we hold 5-year-olds to higher standards than nation states. Because if a 5-year-old steals something, they have to give it back. If a 5-year-old hits someone, you say, you shouldn't do that. Apologize. Give them a hug. Make it right. If you did something wrong, make it right. But we hold 5-year-olds at higher standards than nation states. And that's the kind of insane logic of these times. It's like, how do we begin to repair ourselves from that? That we think that's okay. How do we, one, it doesn't mean we justify what children do. We say, no, you know, you need to do better. But we also need to hold our own selves and our own adults better accountable, at least at the standards of 5-year-olds. You know, maybe we can work on 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds later. But like 5-year-olds, I don't think that's asking too much. I learned a lot from 5-year-olds. I learned how much unicorns are necessary and balloons are necessary. And I always say I love balloons. How many people here love balloons? See, and you know what? So, okay, so I want to share with you on why I love balloons, and then I want to read another poem, and then we'll get a little bit more into some more poetics. Is that the reality of balloons is that they teach us that physical science can be defied. That when we think of gravity itself is an illusion. It's not a law. There's things that go against it and go beyond it. And so then if you think of that metaphorically, that, quote, there's things that pull us down. And then there's things so light that can even defy these, quote, unconquerable laws and remind us that flight is necessary. Rising up is necessary. Flying is necessary. You know, you begin to understand why balloons are like logos, like in symbols, you know, for so much, as well as stars. Because we were born stars but crashed. Now rhyme in bar 16. At night, grown men go to clubs and pick up on women, barely 16. Underage men behind bars do our bids in 16. My sister thinks sweet 16 ain't so sweet, so she rushes to grow older. A year earlier, quinceañera, one of the 5 decade plus half. My grandfather lost his brother building the transcontinental railroad tracks. My cousin arms, it bears witness with the traces of tracks. This is why we write tracks. We see the need for alternatives. We be the new MCs, those who respect ancestors and producers. My family worked the fields. We lost 2 aunts to pesticides. They died from cancer. No answer from God's systems. Left, right, religious. Keep your definitions. My father is not mechanic. He is not oppressed. He is my father. Sorry. I have ADD. Audio deficit disorder. That was off track, back to our original train of thought. My Tio was a Gandhi dancer, Mexican singing as he was slamming sledgehammer and body against railroad ties. We tied our lives to those tracks. We died with those tracks. Now those tracks are where children are beating each other to death in the back with railroad ties in Chicago, the Shah. Radio tracks lie, we lay, gente, what the hell's happened to us? It's like we like being wrapped in the clack of a gap backseat of the black and white backs, bruised blue eyes, bloodshot, red, green, give me the money. Honey, what is the color of truth? Indigo. We have indigenous names, and indigo generation will rename, retain, reclaim reality. We are bronze skin, obsidian beautiful people, and I know it's hard out here. But mother hater, our ancestors built temples that raised the sun. Don't tell me we can't raise our children. Your visions are playing hide and seek with secrets beneath ocean floor. Our tomorrow is like land underneath Los Angeles, faulty. Love your people enough to carve a new philosophy. Prophecy is those who were discovered will discover the next new world. We will build it audibly. We will name it the new word. Columbus and Captain Cook will be censored, as will all those who stole our stories. They will learn to sit in silence and listen. Just listen and listen. Just listen, for we were born stars but crashed. This is why we do not do well with systems of oppression or gravity. Our people were never designed to be held down in the first place. I'm going to share some more poems. I like writing. Just period. Whether it's poems, whether it's prose, whether it's commissions, whether it's working with graphic designers, typographers. And the reality of why I like writing is this, is that there's an actual field, it's a subsection of psychology. It's a growing field in global health. It's called narrative therapy. As a field itself, it's called narrative medicine. Narrative therapy has always been a subsection, which is specifically people who have been wounded in their childhood. How do they write back to certain memories, to people who harmed them, to people who are no longer in their life, and write a different ending or say the things that they've always needed to say? And how does that shift their psychological relationship to their past? Narrative medicine is a little bit different. Narrative medicine looks at it, what are the physiological and psychological effects of being a community that's never in control of your own narrative? To grow up and never see yourself reflected in a positive life in television and music, to be absent from every form of power in textbooks, like, how does that affect us? Not just in this like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not there, but like, what are the real physiological, psychological, meaning mind and body effects that make people sick of never seeing themselves reflected positively? And how do claiming language and ways to tell our stories serve as medicine? And a way to repair ourselves from some of the lies that we believe. And you specifically think about like how, what people often call, whether you say you're trying to reform, you're trying to change your culture, whether you're talking about ethnic culture, you're trying to reform Islam, like all the different things people say, like, no, this is the way it's always been. And we start to realize that societies aren't fixed points. They're trajectories. They're always in flux and changing. And we realize as we hear things about ourselves and about a lot of the things we care about, that when you go to different places on the planet, you realize how small of a story you got of a place. For example, if I told people, oh yes, so I did this reading in London, you know, for a whole bunch of people who were British, and then I showed them a picture of this room. You know, I think they'd be like, this isn't London, you know? This isn't what the narrative of Britain is supposed to be, because cities are brands and they get projected and marketed across, you know, this planet in order to encourage tourism, create certain forms of like economic growth. And the reality is when you start to get into cities, you realize this is what the cities look like all over the world. Blends of peoples and stories, and not only wounds, because we're starting to name our wounds. Like, we're looking at these books we've read about us and we're like, that's not true. Like, that's not what happened in that country because my mother lived there, my father lived there, and I know that they didn't leave willingly. This wasn't just like some happy little migration and people went to another country because they got bored and wanted better shopping. You know, it was like we start to like realize and tell our stories, and so we start to name our pain. And then as we name our pain, we also realize that we're also starting to speak life and grow dreams. You know, that we're more than our wounds. You know, we have more in common than atrocity. You know, that we have so much in common with our visions. And to me, this is why, going back full circle, these story places are so essential. Because what they do is they shift public discourse. They say no one person has the right to define an entire city to the rest of the planet. No one mayor or one department or one art council can say, this is what Britain's story is. This is what the Earth's story is. It's the people who write their stories and share it that tell us what it is. And then when we hear it in public spaces, we start to say, wow, I never knew that about you. And even more so, I never knew that someone else had the same experience. All the stories I've kept swallowed in my lungs of all the things we've survived, the things we don't talk about in our communities, the sexual violence, the physical violence, the mental health issues, the poverty, the hunger, the homelessness, the psychological abuse that hurt people, and this is something that's real. But because we never speak about it, we think it only happened to me, so I need to be ashamed. And this is what that storytelling does. It shifts that public discourse as well as it begins to heal trauma by saying, I'm not the only one, and this isn't the only person this has happened to. To me, one of the largest things we don't speak about is mental health needs and suicide and self-harm, which across generations, across ages, is just, it's an epidemic. My mother committed suicide when I was 14, and going through that most of my life and having to repair myself from an action she did. And then at a certain point, at a certain age, going through more healing for myself by starting to rehumanize her entire life beyond just the end. Starting to understand her battle with schizophrenia and clinical depression. Starting to understand, and then on a larger world level, what are the ways we get taught to devalue our own life? That we begin to say, this world would be better off without me. And they call suicide the perfect moment of selfishness. And I thought about that. It was on the 20th year of her death, and a friend of mine had been nominated for a Grammy in the early 2000s, and I remember we met after that, and one of the first conversations we had when we were talking, and we were just talking about our life story, was when she was up for a Grammy, she had attempted suicide. You know, and she had almost died, flatlined, and they had to rush her to the hospital. And another friend of mine who also was a poet, his brother had committed suicide, which is why he began writing. And so we all came together to do an event called Lifeline, in the space between Razor Blade and Skin Lies a Poem. And the idea was really about what we needed to say to ourselves, to our families, and to those who had attempted or had taken or had actually taken their own life. What would we say in that perfect moment, which for many people is the only time they feel they can actually be completely honest with their emotion and be vulnerable because they don't think they have to face anyone ever again? What if we could award that moment without ending the life, allowing that space of vulnerability for people? And so we wrote this piece, me and the sister, and it was literally about 4 characters that we needed to apologize to. If I could write a letter in this perfect moment, what would I tell you? Who? You. Who is one, me. The first person I owe an apology to for failing to fulfill the most basic of human lifelines at time. I've lived lifetime inside wounds I had no right to own. Yes, I know it's not my fault. I've always known this. That was never my question. It was, Mama, why didn't you love me enough to stay? A question I've tried to answer and only found other children in grown bodies asking the same question. I've sought guidance in the tears of lovers who sat from age 3 to 8 on a doorstep, waiting for their father in another country to come join them, to come back home. I know ladies who've lost loved ones to addictions, to streets, to the states, to needles and arms, and we wound each other beautifully. I am sorry to you, but first, to myself for ever thinking I was not worthy of being loved for a lifetime. It is no wonder so many of us learn to leave first, no more. I deserve to be present in the presence of this present moment perfectly too. In this perfect moment, I always think of Dad. Every evening I wonder, what right does a son have to tell a father who lost his wife, let go of her and the house you refuse to leave, the demon you hold like the last memory of her not breathing, the ambulance in the garage, the failed first attempts in the bathtub, the decades of pain you tried to talk to her through. Dad, she haunts you, not because of what you did or didn't do, but because she misses you. You who has been my roadmap of masculine and feminine in the absence of estrogen, energy, brown, male, hands weathered from mechanics and fields and the draft and the guns and dad. Put down the tears in your palm. Hold me instead. I am ready to do the same. 3. To my sisters and my sister. To my brothers and my brothers from other mothers and all the other OVs of the world, exhale. Whether you are indigo energy, zinc blue, turquoise truth, lavender laughter, amber energy after your color you are when you're crunk on the dance floor, bluish bruises and blinking breath. Whatever creative BS way you say I live in color, say I live in color. No matter the gray, LA, London skyline, the NY gritty city grind, the bleaching creams they sold us, the screams when they sold us, exhale. Like a breathing lessons underwater, exhale. Like that cop's gun to our dome, exhale. Like lover turning sunsets into vanilla sky, exhale. Remember, we are sound color so beautiful, we even turn dreams damp with the sweat of breath when we create life for. And this perfect moment is you. In this fragmented pink perfection, who I want you to know that every second you breathe is your most perfect moment. Thank you. Most days I feel my heart is large enough to house and hold all of humanity with those who are wounded, young, and often getting the biggest rooms, where the walls are made of angel arms so they can continually hold you whenever needed. There is a drum in the distance and your father is dancing in the desert. Every now and then he'll kick up a cloud storm to rain because you are thirsty. This is not a metaphor. This is a prescription now given to you, written from researching my own pain. Your name is derived from loot. It is burnt like oud. It is all music, isn't it? This out-of-chord life, the different keys, the movements, the compositions, the scales. It is all music. You are all music. Your soul is all music. Your beauty is all music. Your pain is all music. And I want you to know that I hear you. Like the echoing energy of a familiar wound and a familiar womb. Your voice is my lifeline in this healing process. Beautiful sister, wounded soldiers, I hear you. In 1975, alive I was born. My mom's womb was a house party. From a beat I was torn. She was born in 45, like an LP, 45, alive. It's like rhythm we be, even though she cut her own soundtrack in October 89. And suicide, what dies, is more than a rhyme. In a world of clowns, are we more than a mime? Am I more than my mind? Am I more than my mom's? Are we more than the scars that cut poems on our palms? Are we more than the bombs they dropped on our village? We are soul-style Darwin, survival of the illest. You argue, I'm realist. I argue, pure dreamer. We are more than Sarah Palin's Arizona's grim reapers. We're old school like beepers. We're ancient as Coptics. Our ancestors are albums, and best believe I will cop it from Sudan, Sri Lanka, Turtle Island, to Gaza. One breath, one flesh, one Amma, mi Amma. I am all that is left of those who have left. You are all that is left of those who have left. We are all that is left of those who have left. So respect, respect, respect. Wow. So I want to do one more piece, and then we said we'd do about 30 minutes of poetics, and then I guess a couple questions, and open it up to everyone. All the happy people. Actually, it's interesting. You know, I love the thing saying happy, because people ask me, you know, what's your answer to world peace? And you know, of course, there's stop stealing other people's shit. But besides that, you know, we define so much of ourselves in oppositions to things. So our existence is resistance, never affirmation. You know, we fight the power we never claim, create, or cultivate our own. You know, so we define ourselves always as things we're opposed. So it's end this, end the war, end this. And I'm like, okay, what do I actually want to grow? So like I look at all these end world hunger initiatives or end world hunger programs. And I always just think of like, so what is, you know, the positive counterpart of that? And it's really simple. Happy bellies. And so I'm like, we're happy people. And that's to me what it means when it's happy. It's like happy bellies, happy babies, happy people. You know? And then sometimes, you know, people want to have political arguments. Well, what do you think about this? And I'm like, listen, I'm for the happy bellies and happy babies. And they kind of look at you, well, how do you feel? I told you, happy belly. What? And they're like, well, I don't agree with you. So are you against the bellies or the babies? You know, really, when you think about it, bigots are painfully unimaginative. The cycles, the stories they tell about our communities of, well, you know, I think we also have to understand when people talk about, you know, oh, Islam is being attacked or the Muslims are being attacked. There is no Muslim. It's a narrative in the public space. In reality, when you look at identity, Islam is not an identity. Islam is the point of unity for identities across the globe to come together for a common purpose, prayer, and path. It itself is not just one identity. When we start to allow it to be, that's when you start to get in the different branches and the different arguments, and then you get into a lot of, we argue about sectarian violence, it's like we get into a lot of our intra-community violence. You know, and we think about that because we're always defining ourselves in opposition, that we never think about, like, what am I outside of what they say I am? And if this paper, or even this life, is literature, and life is language, because language doesn't articulate reality, it creates reality. Most people have never been to Somalia, most people have never been to Australia, most people have never been to Palestine, but you say that word and a picture pops in their head. Because a language and narrative has been created, so when a word is uttered, what is called a geography of an imagination is constructed in your mind. That has to be deconstructed. But we work so much on deconstructing, we never say, what do I want to build? When I say love, what pictures do I want people to pop? What pictures do I want to pop into people's head? When I say justice, what pictures do I want to appear? When I say dreams, what do I want to appear? How do we get back to this language that inspires us to stay alive? Because that actually I find is the most crucial thing at this moment, is that we're arguing political strategies amongst a small amount of people when the majority of people are in shell shock, who would rather prefer the grave over this life. And our answer to that is, you know, is die on our feet instead of live on our knees. It's like, we're going to die already. I don't need to accelerate anybody's like death process. It's like, how do we actually put life again at the center of all our language, our dreams, our love, our stories, our narratives? How do we grow this? I have a couple postcards. I'll have these in the back. Muiz Anwar is a phenomenal South Asian typographer. He was listed as one of the top 20 Arabic typographers in the world. And he's basically 26, which makes you feel like, or at least me feel like, what the hell have I done with my life? You know, that's why it's great to have like really exceptional friends, because anytime you're like, I'm doing this, and then, you know, they show you their awards, you're like, oh, yeah, humility check, that's great. But we thought about it, and we're like, what are some of the things that we need to remind ourselves? What are the medicines that would be good to look up in the morning, specifically in this era of, I don't like the word Islamophobia because it still makes it like it's Islamophobia, I'm like bigots. Just call them bigots. You know, it's like we don't need to add all these different shades of like subsections of bigotry. You know, it's like they're bigots. Just call them what they are, you know? And so as we deal with these bigots, because the thing is, when people think they're like, oh, they're attacking Islam, it's like, no. they're attacking a brown, darker skinned, bearded image that goes back to the Inquisition. And that specifically actually has to do with the Americas and my people and the arguments of whether or not we had a soul. Because if you massacred us and we didn't have a soul, there's no effect on your soul. And so that's what justifies the centuries of stealing, of massacres, because they're soulless people. They didn't think, oh, they're Muslims, they're this. It's like we need a rationale, the justification to kill them. And so with the bigots, I think about like, what do I need to remind myself? Because I find a lot of times we're like, that's not who we are, or we need to be allowed to do this. And I just need to sometimes remind myself and remind my people of this really simple phrase, which is, I am a Muslim, my prayers do not need your permission. Recentering ourselves, you know, it doesn't mean we don't take time to explain things to people who are genuinely curious about life or the way we live our life. But it also means we stop asking for acceptance. You don't like me, I don't need to kick it with you. The party's gonna be a lot more fun without you, you know, get to step in. It's like, I don't need you. Like, why am I trying to get you to accept me? I need you to stop messing with the resources that directly affect my life expectancy. But that's very different from accept me. You know, it's understanding that. It's also understanding, like when I get here and I enter this really big building called the British Museum, that I sometimes think about, like, when we talk about like ills that go on in the community, and often they go, you know, why are you all so violent? Why are you all so loud? You know, why do you all steal so much? And, you know, sometimes I just need to remind the world, like, dear British Museum, what kind of people charge a fee for others to see what they have stolen? They must have forgotten that property renamed can be reclaimed. We are Somalia. We are Samoas. We are the Americas, and we want our property back. And so the last one, specifically for me as an indigenous person of the Americas, and just to make a clarification, because Shakini and I actually had a little conversation about this, I'm really large on linguistic frameworks. Linguistic frameworks means when you think about a debate, the person who asks the first question frames the entire dialogue. So normally we're responding to questions. We're not thinking about like, what is the terminology that's already been presented to us, which has limited the conversation. So when we talk about theft in a nation, we don't talk about the British Museum. We don't talk about Australia and the Aboriginal people. You know, we don't talk about stealing on mass levels. We only talk about stealing of smaller things. Stealing is wrong, you know. Reclaiming things is very different from stealing. But it's like understanding this linguistic framework. And part of the linguistic framework is we always, again, talk about resistance. We never talk about resilience. And so in the linguistic framework, for me, is we put forth the word native narratives. And I have to make a distinction, you know, between in the States what's called First Nations. Most people say Native American. The reality is Native American encompasses over 600 languages, not even dialects, and over 1,000 tribes in the 1490s that spanned, you know, nearly 100 million people. And I have friends from many of those tribes. And I am a descendant of people from those places. But the difference between First Nations, quote, native and indigenous, really is that First Nations knows directly the land they were on, and it's a battle of sovereignty. It really is a legal battle for this is our land, and we want it back. Indigenous is more for a lot of you in this room too, who have been displaced from places. And we also have to really just shatter this idea of like European and white as like this homogenous or even an identity, because the Romas are in Europe. Are they considered European? Are the Irish, you know, considered, like you go back 2 centuries by the British, are they considered European? Is there some sense of like, oh, you're a great friend, you're in this country too? No, there's a lot, like when you get into it, you know, there's so much that really makes up identity. So even within like Europe, all the different indigenous tribes that got swallowed up when France became one nation state. Germany became a nation state. You know, and the reality is First Nations and Native is a legal framework, a linguistic framework about taking back land. Indigenous, and what people will say decolonization, is about how do we repair ourselves from living in cycles of violence so long we've adopted it as our culture because we've normalized it. So one is about a cultural shift and movement and repair. The other is about a legal and land framework and understanding like these are both necessary, but they also both invoke very different things. But as an indigenous person, in terms of, and I think maybe we'll close off with this piece. The last thing when I hear people arguing back and forth, you know, of something that just happened, it was October 12th. Anyone know what happened in the States on October 12th?
The floods.
One of the Indians died, I think. One of the native Indians.
Well, there's that. October 12th, 1492. Anyone know what happened? Yeah. You know what? This is why I actually, you know, to me, like even as writers, I love working with illustrators and really conceptualizing a whole new wave of children's books, because most of us know these phrases through childhood rhymes. And then when we write our narratives, we write it in this academic language, when 90% of our community will never make it through college and can access that language. You know, so really, who are we writing for? You know, how do we reframe our stories and our ideas? But so, there's the battle, you know, it's like Columbus lands, and what do you think the word they use? They say, Columbus blanked America. Discovered. So sometimes I need to remind people that, dear Columbus, you cannot discover a land 70 million people are living on. Never understood the term Indian giver. My original people only gave life to pilgrims 2 centuries before the Bill of Rights, only asking for the right to breath. Instead, they read us our right to death rights and white rights to land, which landed us right in the middle of a reservation, and now they wonder why our hopes reserved. It's a force of habit. When those with habits hosted masses that labeled us half savage, half heathen, to the point where centuries later, we are still believing we are not beautiful, but no more. Therefore, let it be known that I am a Mesoamerican Mexican, born in 1975 to be part of the hip-hop generation, predestined to be malnourished in the 80s when President Reagan thought ketchup was a vegetable. Just so he wouldn't have to buy my brother's school lunch program green beans, we learned to survive off the music, stood in line for CDs like it was government cheese, and instead of black beans and collard greens, we ate MCs for lunch. As such, our resistance to death got us labeled revolutionary like Public Enemy. Number one of those children of the sun. The First Nations drum is the root of this history called hip-hop. Root is in before our rhyme, minds in line with the divine design. We survived the vanilla Ice Age. We got crucified in death row records only to be reborn in a Jurassic 5 age. Those who believe that we, like Chuck D, are what's wrong with the world today. Those who won't sit down, shut up, and conform. But we weren't born to conform. We were born to grow, create, rebel, grow, create, rebel. We were born in hell and died twice for surviving. The hood is proof of the afterlife, life after death, life called breath. We are beyond Christ. We don't break bread. We break dance and break beats to feed the masses. Masses meaning people. Like the Black Panthers, for the people. Like the word Mexica, of the people. Like most deaf, my people. I am Mark Gonzales, representing our people. Our people. Our people. Without hesitance. Question is, at the end of your life, who will you represent? And let me be clear. Till the eyes of I and I cry from Mau Mau to Mumbai, I grind for the ghetto in Gaza. For even as the bomb drops amidst the gunshots, and amber ashes rise to block out the sun. Even as their red, white, and blue striped steel-toed boots move in with guns, no, you cannot beat out the heartbeat of a drum. There is no defeating the dreams of God, Creator, Allah. From the ghetto to Gaza, Janine sings us a song of summer and solstice. I want to offer you solace. Know soon the world will move beyond protest and begin to defend their friends and loved ones from killing. They are building walls and prisons. We are building children's visions. Tonight, we are 3 rhythm and minds, but 1 fate, 2 minds, but 1 face beyond bombs and guns that seal our fate. We are the ones who will heal the hate. We are the ones who will heal the hate. We are the ones who will heal the hate. Refugees will see the end of wait, and I can't wait to go home again.